Well, good morning. My name is Dr. Larry Force, and I am a professor of psychology at Mount St. Mary College, and I'm co-director of the Center on Aging and Disability Policy. 3 years ago, we were provided an opportunity to receive funding from the New York State Developmental Disability Planning Council. And it was a grant opportunity for 3 years. We're now in the third year of taking mindfulness-based stress reduction that was produced out of Vanderbilt University, and to be able to develop that with them using their platform. And again, just for the ground rules, everybody could hit mute in the background, unless they're talking. So we ended up doing some partnership work with Vanderbilt University. They had developed a program on mindfulness-based stress reduction using the work of John Kabat-Zinn. So we were awarded the grant through our Center on Aging and Disability Policy, and the co-director is Dr. Jeffrey Kahana. And we put together a team, and members of the team are here. Some of the members of the team here: Elaine Sproat came on as a project director, Peggy Pisano came on as a school psychologist, Lisa Nathan came on as a parent advocate, Sharon Mary Cohen, myself, Jeffrey, Roger Monti, and the team just continued to evolve. And we were moving forward. We did the training the first year, 6-week groups, and then we modified it. And then we ended up doing a train the trainer the second year. And as we're coming into the third year, we're continuing on with this. And the next thing we know, we're all living in an upside down world. So what we're doing now is we are taking the content of what we have and being able to modify it into a virtual platform. This is not a talking head presentation. We've talked about this. What is it that parents want now? What is it that people want? The reality is that, as you can see in the title, it's called virtual, presence and support. So we brought together today Lisa Nathan and Peggy Pisano, and to talk about the issue of managing behavior in a mindful way. The discussion will go back and forth. They'll give you some helpful tips, and then we'll open it up for discussion. But if you're not talking, again, if you could hit the mute button on your computer, because we do hear some background noise. All right, so with Lisa and Peggy, you want to start this?
Hey. Well.
Lisa and I talked yesterday, and we thought perhaps we would start with a couple little breathing strategies, just so that people kind of get a sense of what we're talking about when we talk about mindful-based stress reduction. And then I was going to just kind of jump in with some behavioral strategies that we could perhaps offer to parents who are now the sole providers of services in their homes. Previously there was a whole team of people, and I see some of my colleagues out there who have done this work in schools all the time, who now have sort of transferred that information and that support to parents alone. So we thought, we would start with some stress reduction breathing techniques, and then I would go into some behavioral strategies, and then open it up for help and support from anybody that's out there.
All right, so Lisa, could you just start just giving like a quick background of, you and I met about 2 years ago, but how you arrived, at our table. If you could talk a little bit about, the lived experience and how you arrived here at the table, that would be helpful.
Sure. Well, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lisa Nathan. I have a son with special needs. He's on the spectrum, and he has intellectual disabilities. He's 19 years old, so I have that whole background. I met Larry a couple of years ago, as he mentioned, at a caregiver conference. At the time, I was caring for my husband, who was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's and Lewy body dementia. So I was this completely stressed out caregiver. And he mentioned this project about mindful-based stress reduction, and parents of children who have parents who have children with intellectual disabilities, and the whole combination really kind of raised every flag, and it was like, wow, how do I join? So that's how I met him. So I became a meditator when my husband, after 3 years of living with these diseases, had to move into a nursing home. He became violent at home, and he couldn't live there for the safety of himself and the family. And I just kind of found meditation, and it was so helpful to me that I just maintained the practice, and I built a practice, and I learned a lot, and that's what I'm here for. So what I'd love to do is to give a sample of a stress relief breathing technique. This is like great for like when you're really like in a completely stressed out moment and you need to, find that relief. So if we're all ready, I'm just going to start. Okay. So I tried doing this before in video, and it's like a lot harder than I thought to like, be in video and do this. So I'll do the best I can. All right. What you want to do, the first thing is to place your hands on your belly. Because what you want to do is when you're inhaling, you want to feel your belly extend, move away from your spine. And when you're exhaling, you want to feel your belly move back towards your spine. Okay. If you're comfortable, you can close your eyes. And what I want you to do is when you're inhaling, I want you to breathe in through your nose. Take a pause, and then when you're exhaling, I want you to breathe out through your mouth. And if you can make the exhale a little bit longer than your inhale, that would be great. And when you're exhaling, I want you to feel like almost like you're trying to blow up a balloon. Okay, we'll try this, and we'll try for a count of 4 in, hold, and then exhale for a count of 7. Okay, so let's start. So our hands are on our belly. We're going to breathe in through our nose for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. Exhale for a count of 7. Okay, we're going to do that 3 more times. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. One more time. Inhale. Hold. Okay, now you can start breathing naturally in through your nose and out through your nose. In through your nose, out through your nose. Now what I want you to do is feel where there's any tension in your body. We tend to hold our attention in our eyes, our face, neck, shoulders, belly, or back. And I want you to notice if you feel any tension there. And just breathe. It's okay. Whatever is there, it's okay. And I want you to breathe into the tension. Let's say there's tension in your shoulders. That's a really big one. Breathe in through the tension that you feel there, and try to breathe it away. And just feel whatever is there, just accept it and let it be. And you're going to breathe in and out just for a few more moments, in through your mouth and out through your mouth. So let's just do that for just a few breaths, trying to feel any tension in your body. Okay. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And I want you to be grateful for yourself for taking the time out to do this. And this is a practice. And I actually have like a little sheet I made with the techniques that I can post. And I want you to, when you're done, it's important to notice if there's any tension release and feel any tension leaving your body. And the thing is about stress is you can't think away stress. when you have a real stress input, whether it's your kid acting out or whatever is going on, your body has a surge of stress hormones released into your body. It's a fight or flight response. And when that happens, your blood vessels constrict, your body is inflamed, it reduces your immune response stress. And by using your breath, you can switch from a fight or flight response into a relaxation response. And the whole idea is by controlling your breath, you can control your mind. And that's what this breathing technique is for, to help reduce that. And it's just a practice. If you do it, it doesn't matter. You can stand, you can sit, you can lie down, whatever works. And as this goes on, we'll add some other breathing techniques, for just general mindfulness and meditation. But I just wanted to give you that kind of stress relief breathing technique for right now.
So thank you, Lisa. One of the things that we've talked about is, look, as Lisa said, the superintendent of her school district said one time recently that all of us are building the bus as we're driving it. And that's what we're all doing. And the reason that we arrived at this format is we wanted to try to make it real and be able to develop a presence and support for parents. The title of it is called Managing Behavior, but you notice it didn't say managing your child's behavior. When we talk about managing behavior, the first behavior that you have to really get control of is your own. And that technique that Lisa just talked about is something, we're under this illusion, I think, stereotype that all meditation has to be done like in a lotus position. That's not true. That's not true. And as Lisa said, it really is a practice. Ideally, what would we hope? We've had these discussions, Lisa, Peggy, and I. What would we hope? Wouldn't it be wonderful if every IEP process started with a moment of meditation? It would completely change the climate. I mean, Lisa is very bright. And Lisa and I have had a number of conversations where she says, look, I go to an IEP process. I am prepared. I'm ready. I'm going to advocate for my child. I walk in, I see 6 administrators and school psychologists and school social workers, and I tense up. I don't, because typically in those rooms, it's kind of, the aura is, we're going to ask, you're going to say no, we're going to advocate, you're going to say no again, we're going to ramp it up and lawyer up, you're going to say no. Wouldn't it be great if there was a way we could change that climate? My dear friend and colleague, Jeff Kahana, the other night in an email exchange talked about the fact that, because we have a lot of content. I mean, we are chock full of content when it comes to the material that we use for teaching. But he said, wouldn't it be great if we developed a program using our content that over an 8-week period, we collectively meditated. I'm not talking about gathering on Zoom, and meditating, on a daily basis, but putting this practice into your own life. So Lisa, thank you so much, for giving us an example of what it's really like. And that's how it really starts.
Okay.
Jeffrey said, some people start.
I don't hear anything.
Some people
That happened to me
say
yesterday when I went on another kind of link, so I don't hear.
Okay, well, we can hear you, Joan. Okay, so I'm just going to mute you for a second. Thank you so much for joining us. And then I'll get right back to you, Joan. I think, as you can see, what we're doing is we're blending together the lived experience of the parent, because I heard somebody say the other day in discussion, if I get one more email, not about our stuff, but if I get one more email from any organization about how to be stress-free, she said, I feel like I'm going to kill myself. And the fact is, how do you go about, really implementing, putting this stuff into your life in a natural way? Because there's a rhythm to the life. As Peggy mentioned before, and we were talking to Chuck before we went online here from Clarkstown, that the school districts are lighting up and they're becoming present for the kids that are now home. But as Lisa said, my son is never going to sit in front of a computer, no matter what kind of material is delivered. So the idea is, how do we go about, helping parents exhale And Peg, maybe you can talk about maybe some of the real concrete, techniques of behavioral management of the child now, because now we've talked about the management of the self.
Okay, so I think the reason that Lisa and I started with that little meditation is because one of the major components of behavioral management is trying to keep your calm. And as I said to Chuck before, and Tracy and Deirdre, you guys could jump right in here, but the school district has a whole myriad of people who, when a child is acting out or upset, everybody kind of comes to the foreground. And now it's left to parents and caregivers solely on their own. So we thought that if we could, one, offer some behavioral strategies, which I'll get into in a minute, but also teach some relaxation sort of techniques for parents as well as children and students. Maybe they start, or do that different times throughout the day so that they can learn their own self-calming techniques. Because in the face of a behavioral episode, if you will, it's very difficult to remain calm. So, that's just a kind of a little disclaimer out there. But basic behavior management techniques are designed to either increase appropriate behaviors or decrease inappropriate behaviors. And I think for the most part, when we look at those kinds of things, we always look at decreasing. But I think the reverse is the thing that perhaps we should focus on, which would be increasing more appropriate things. Hi, Deirdre, I just see you now. So, ways of increasing appropriate behaviors for parents, we may all know these things as professionals, but again, parents might not know these kinds of strategies at home. And some of the things parents do every day are really behavioral strategies that, were developed a long time ago. So I think that the first sort of disclaimer, again, if you will, is to try to increase the more appropriate behaviors. And a way of doing that is to try to find and have access to your child before the behavior occurs. So you're going to look at different antecedents, if you will, but look at different behaviors that may be leading up to a difficulty. And that's a difficult thing to do. It's hard to find out why someone, acted in a certain way. But I think as parents and caregivers, that's the main goal, is to kind of find out why my child is acting out. Now, in today's world, it could be they're bored, they don't understand their homework. I mean, there's a whole myriad of things that impact children in today's right now world. But, try to find out what that thing is and kind of head it off before it starts. And so, some of the breathing techniques that Lisa just did, or some of the diversion kind of techniques that we might use, let's go outside, let's go play, let's do something different, are strategies that are behavioral strategies, and parents do those things all the time. They just probably don't call it those things. So I think that is an important thing for parents to recognize, that one, try to act quickly before the behavior escalates. And we all know that, kids can go up that escalation ladder pretty quick, and so can parents. So if we try to remain calm and maybe use some of those breathing techniques when the child is sort of going up the ladder, those are strategies that we can use. Being consistent, and again, in today's world, it's very hard to be consistent because there's no schedule, there's no events. In the past, you got up, you got dressed, you did whatever, you went to school, you came home, you had, snack, you had dinner. So, trying to set some kind of schedule and some consistency for your child would probably be a good thing. But I saw on a news broadcast that somebody, and I think teachers are being very well recognized these days, but somebody was saying they were getting their child up at 7:30 and they were trying to keep to that same schedule, which is probably not so realistic. You don't want your child to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning and then getting at the computer. And so, but some kind of schedule of events. You get up, you do your breakfast, maybe you do some breathing techniques with your child, and then they do some schoolwork. And so some kind of consistent pattern of behavior so that then they can anticipate what's going to happen, and you could perhaps anticipate any of the difficulties that might arrive. When you're dealing with behavior, you have to be very specific and concrete. So, behaviors will talk about, not saying that was a bad thing to do, but, I don't like when you throw your shoe at your brother or what have you, so that the child understands exactly what the behavior is that is appropriate and is not appropriate. And that's really, I think, an important strategy, because I think as people, we just say, stop that, I don't like that, don't do that. And especially children with disabilities, have a difficult time understanding those vague terms. So I think, some definition of the behavior or the problem behavior is important. I think probably the most important thing, well, maybe not the most, but they're all important, but one of the most important things is to praise often the appropriate behavior. And I'm not sure as human beings we do that a lot. We're pretty focused on, what you didn't do and what you didn't do yesterday, but I think when we want to increase, more appropriate behaviors, when we see it, we have to let somebody know about it. And again, children, and especially children with disabilities, need praise, as we all do. And so, some very concise and clear rules about what is and what isn't going to be tolerated. And again, in this world, I think you have to pick your battles. I think you always have to pick your battles with children, but you have to really pick your battles now. And so some of the things that perhaps were, things that you would have focused on, perhaps maybe you let some of that go now, unless it's very threatening or, something serious. But, maybe if they didn't clean their room or they didn't pick up their toys, you let that go because now you have some other priority to work on. And I think picking your battles can't change the world in a minute. And however old your child is, that's how long it took them to sort of get to that behavioral difficulty, if you will. So I think you can't change everything at once. So pick your battles, find what's most important for you and your family, and then work on those things. And then, ways of working on changing behavior are things that parents do all the time. Time out, you have a little child, they go time out into an environment that's not reinforcing, whether it's their room or a chair, or they have to sit on their bed or whatever. And again, those are behavioral strategies that parents use all the time. Reinforcing the alternate behavior. So, your child is doing something inappropriate and you see them then do something appropriate that's sort of contrary to the negative behavior. So then you really lay on the praise and reinforce that alternate kind of behavior so that they can recognize, wow, mom and dad or grandma or whoever's taking care of me, really likes when I do that. And they don't really like when I do that other stuff. So really laying on the praise when you see somebody doing something appropriate. Ignoring behavior is an important strategy, even though it's very difficult, I think, for most of us to do, because human beings don't usually like to ignore things, I think. So, but if you can ignore something that's, again, not dangerous, but inappropriate, as long as it's not one of those things that you want to specifically concentrate on. But if you can ignore something, pretend that you didn't see it, then the child doesn't get that mixed message like, oh, I did something wrong and mom saw it, but she really doesn't care about it. So if you can ignore it, you probably will have a better outcome. There are other things, like you could do a token economy with your child. If you have multiple children at home, you can do things where they can earn points, they can earn stars, they can earn, it depends on the level and the age of your child, but certainly you can do those kinds of things at home. You can, and you teachers out there probably know this better than I do, but you can do things like put jelly beans or pennies in a jar, and then it's called response cost. But when you do something wrong, you lose that penny. But you start out with 10 pennies, or again, depending on the age of your child. When your child is older, you could do some behavioral contracting. And so that is, you know, mom agrees or dad agrees or whomever agrees to do this if you do this. And everybody's got it laid out. You can even write it up as a contract. Everybody can sign it if they want. So, you know, there are different ways to have some semblance of, I think, average behavior and activities in your home. Again, it's a difficult world out there, and it's particularly challenging for parents who, I think, you know, are used to school districts taking the lead in how to do these things. And so we're going to put up some of these strategies on a website. Maybe you guys want to share it with some of your parents. What is it that some of you guys, I know Tracy and Deirdre, you're from my school district. Joan, I see your name there, and Karen, hi. So what are you guys doing with the parents with kids with disabilities, you know, to help them at home? Anybody want to jump in?
I know, I'm just sending out information like I sent out, you know, this, I only got it yesterday afternoon, so I got this out to my transition network and all of my consumers. I know it was short notice, so if you guys do something else, if I can get a little bit more notice, we can get it out a little sooner and maybe more people would be involved.
Well,
Yeah,
what we're doing is we're recording this, and then what we're doing is we're also circulating it. And as I said, you know, we're, you know, based upon Lisa's superintendent, we're building the bus, you know, as we go along. The idea was that we would send out a link on Tuesday for the event on Wednesday. But from what I'm hearing you say, we'll send the link out on Monday. All right, that'll give you like an extra day. You know, and I think, you know, the idea is to have this exchange. And Peg, you did a really good job of providing the overview. But before I open it up for discussion, I want to ask Lisa. So now Peggy outlines the behavioral issues, the behavioral process, okay, that we know that is steadfast and that has worked. But here you are as a parent, and here you are as a meditator. Okay, so how do you take that content that Peggy outlines that we know is valuable and build it into the rhythm of your day? I mean, could you talk a little bit about that, both as a parent and more importantly, as a meditator as well?
All right, what I was thinking of when you were talking, Peggy, and it's like, this is like really important. I think this is the crux of this stress reduction technique, this breathing technique, is learning how to respond before you react. You know, when your kid's acting out, I mean, you know, when they're doing something, some kind of behavior, I mean, it triggers you in such a way that, you know, you have these automatic responses. And I mean, we're human, you know, we're only human. This is what we do. But there's this kind of like millisecond pause that you can develop as a meditator when you are faced with a problem, you know, of the behavior, and learning how to respond rather than react. So, you know, that's what I'm hearing when they're, and that's how these breathing techniques can help. And I can tell you as a meditator, it really works. The other thing I think is you mentioned some of this too, and I think it's also really important with our population, is finding your calm. You know, when my husband was really sick and it was horrible and I was just like a walking shell, you know, I take the dogs out for a walk in the woods, and you know, it was like my happy place, but I was so stressed out. And this is before I started meditating. I didn't realize it. Like, this is like my calm. And I wish I knew then what I know now, because when I was in that environment of peace, I would just let it sink in and just like really let myself be calm and really enjoy that moment, because then your body is really relaxing. And I would say to anybody out there, any parents, you know, find that little piece of calm. It may be putting on music. It might be dancing. It might be watering your plants. It might be going for a walk. It might be drawing or cooking. You know, I get into a total Zen mode when I'm in the kitchen, you know, chopping up my veggies, you know. So whatever it is, use that as, it's okay to use anything as your calm. It doesn't necessarily even mean like a breathing technique, but if you enjoy it and it calms you down, let that help you. And the other thing also for our population are some, and I have a list of things as well we can post, are body, for sensory input, body soothing techniques, getting under, a lot of blankets and having gently laying on top of your kid, or putting some weight on them to soothe them. Putting your kids in a blanket, 2 people holding them and gently moving it back and forth is very soothing. Going outside, pushing anything heavy, or walking on your hands, doing like a walk on your hands gives you a lot of input. So I'd say, for that time when your kid is having like meltdowns, when you're trying to calm your child down, talking is not going to help. It's going to be something that you can physically do. Physical movement, something physical input can really, really help calm yourself and calm your child. So don't, if your kid's having a meltdown sitting in front of the work, let it go. Just let it go. Do something else. But if you can find some of those techniques that the kids really like, pushing a wheelbarrow, going out there, digging a hole in the ground, whatever it is, use them to help. And in the meantime, develop your breathing techniques so you will be able to learn, that split second when you can say, wait a minute, I'm not going to react the way I normally react. I'm going to respond, and I have a moment to think calmly, because when you're stressful, and we all know this, you cannot think clearly. So those breathing techniques give you the ability to have that moment of calm, even if it's a split second, to be able to think clearly and respond rather than react.
And what you just did was Peggy outlined, the techniques, increasing the positive, decreasing the negative, pick your battles. You gave real life examples of how that is in the rhythm of the day. And I think that's what we were hoping for, that, that using this mindfulness-based approach, because, there's enough material out there in the literature.
This is Dr. Lawrence from the Mindful support group we did for parents. He's running like a something for parents to listen to.
All right. This is Sandy? All right, let me just mute that. Okay, I'm getting pretty good at this. I feel like a pilot. Okay, there's things over here, buttons that are showing up that I've never seen before. The idea is to be able to, there's enough material out there in the world about how the caregiver has to take care of themselves. You can't help manage somebody else if you're not being able to manage yourself. And I think that, as you go through this, you start to realize how important it is that the managing behavior begins with the breath, begins with you. And then you can start to, operate within the world, or as we call it, the rhythm of your day. Why don't we open it up now for Peggy? Great job. Lisa, great job. Okay. And Lisa and Peggy at the end are going to give you their contact information. So this way you can, connect with them directly as well. But why don't we open it up for discussion now for a few minutes? And in order to do that, you just have to hit the unmute button. And if you could just identify yourself for the benefit of everybody, that'd be great.
I'm just going to ask a question of my colleagues out there in the world. What are you hearing from parents, and what's your response? What's the schools doing? What are the schools doing, and how can we help if at all?
So we did get together when this is Tracy Phillips from Smack and Kill. So we were lucky enough right before we all went out, the psychologists and social workers in the district got together, as we had done when you were there many times, Peg. And we sort of talked through what the resources were going to be. We have very tech savvy youngsters. Peg, Deirdre and Kate put together some links on the websites, and we were able to put together some wonderful resources. So one of the things I was thinking, I know Deirdre will probably add this webcast to our current links. because parents are looking for what to do. Being at the high school has been different because some of the high schoolers themselves email us, like they've emailed and reached out with concerns. They're, those same kids that were anxious before have a different type of anxiety now. So, I think that, I've been fortunate enough to be able to do these face-to-faces with a couple of kids so far. But just being able to check in. And I think that your talk today was wonderful, Peg, and reinforcing that really 10 times the positives over one correction is so important. People underestimate how many positives kids need every day in order to be able to mitigate and to feel good about themselves. So it's great to give corrections, but really enforcing everything that they're doing right, because we're unsure, and because we're unsure, they're going to be unsure. So they're looking for the direction to go. So thanks so much, Peg, and for setting this all up. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Tracy said it perfectly. I don't really have much to add, but we put together a Google Doc with all different resources.
And this is Deidre.
Yes, I'm sorry, Deirdre McGuire from Spack and Kill also.
Thanks.
Yep. It was Google Doc of different links and resources, what to do if your child is in crisis, what number you could call, who you could reach out to, what agencies are still providing services, virtually, things like that.
Deidre, for a moment, could you just talk about that? Like what age, parents are in the mix, they're in there, and it's really starting to escalate. Could you talk about what you're recommending, as a district, for what parents, who they can still reach out to, who's still, available?
Yep, the Dutchess County Helpline, Astor Services, they had a walk-in clinic, now they're doing it, teleconferencing, things like that. So we definitely recommend those. The Stabilization Center as well is available. So we, if a student is in crisis, we definitely recommend that. Students, as Tracy said, have been reaching out to us through email. So I think I like your analogy of kind of building the bus as we're going, because we're all kind of figuring it out as we go, and we're getting email updates on, certain mailing lists that we're on, and then we just pass that along to parents. So just kind of all learning together.
So there are people on this video cast here that are from throughout the state. So you mentioned Dutchess County, particular area, but what people need to know that there are mirror agencies just like that in the counties that they live in.
Yeah.
So is there a particular protocol? If you say if you've had these discussions with parents, and maybe a parent might say, what do I do? I mean, what do I do if the kid's really, besides, what do you recommend to the parent? I mean, what protocol would you recommend if a parent is having difficulty? Who should the first one that they reach out to? The school district, the school psychologist, the teacher? Who's usually the lead person that the parent's engaging with?
As far as if the student is in crisis in that moment?
Well, that, and also if they have concerns. I mean, some parents are trying to figure out new networks. The only thing they knew about a school before is where it was, how to get to it, and they would talk face to face with a teacher. Now all of that has been, transitioned. So what would you recommend to a parent that has a question, or what would you recommend to a parent that has a question because the kid's now starting to, escalate? Maybe two different scenarios.
Yeah, I would say, again, in our district, in Dutchess County, if the student is in crisis where they're, a danger to themselves or someone else, I wouldn't recommend, reaching out to the school at that point. I would say any of our emergency services. I think, like I said, I know the Dutchess County ones, but I would just be aware of what is available in your own county as far as like the helpline, a mobile crisis team, maybe, something like that when student is in danger in that moment. But if they just have a question as far as any strategies or anything, I would say, school psychologists, school social workers, we're definitely checking our email on a daily basis. Guidance counselors as well can coordinate, with some of the teachers, and academic concerns. Our lead teachers, for students with an IEP, their, case manager, we call lead teacher, could be someone to reach out to as far as any academic concerns with the work. And that's probably what I would recommend. Our principal is very available to our families at Spack and Kill. He, often gives his cell phone number out to parents and to students so they could directly call and text him. So we are trying to be as involved and it's a team approach, I think. and we just try to be available.
That's great. Good advice. What about this concept that we talked about at the very beginning? You know, Jeffrey and I have had these discussions about, wouldn't it be wonderful if every IEP process meeting started with a moment of meditation?
I love that. I think it's a fantastic idea, just to set the tone, you know, of calm and of we're all in this together. You know, it's almost like a team building thing. And I really appreciate not only with IEP meetings, but just of building the mindfulness and meditation into your day, because I think when you bring up mindfulness or meditation, people can be a little intimidated or think, you know, that they have to put aside a half hour or an hour every day where they need to sit, you know, in the position and be very, you know, like in a certain environment. But I think building it into your day, I think is where you're really going to see more life impacting results. So I think that that's a great example of how you can, you know, do it in small doses throughout your day. And I love the idea of starting a CSE meeting that way.
I have a question.
Sure, Diane?
Yeah. Some of the districts are talking about doing meetings during all of this, video conferencing or phone, and it's stressing a lot of the parents out because they're worried about now. They're not worried about doing next year's IEP meeting. So I was wondering how you guys feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, one of the things that, and the support that we receive from the DDPC is, you know, meet people where they are. If it works for some people, fine. But if it doesn't work for other people, that's fine too. You know, Peg, you want to talk about that, you and Lisa?
Well, I guess I would agree with you. I mean, there are some parents that some of their meetings are smooth and they know where they're headed, and it's you know, it's not so challenging. I think for parents who don't want to have a meeting or feel that it's too difficult right now to plan for next year, that meeting should, you know, be held off until everybody's comfortable. That would be my opinion. Karen, you want to say something?
Sorry, yeah, I totally agree with that. I just attended my first virtual meeting right before this, and it did go well. There was definitely technical problems, but that parent, you know, we knew, we had planned beforehand. I spent an hour with her yesterday on the phone planning what we wanted to get accomplished, you know, so it worked well. But I do agree that there probably are parents that just can't do it. They're dealing with so many other things that you just need to say to the district, we can't do this meeting now. It needs to be put off.
Right.
It's interesting. I had a colleague who was a former teacher and she has 3 children at home. She's doing something else now. And she said, you know, I'm working from home and I'm teaching my kids, and she's a teacher and she's having a difficult time. So, you know, to add a CSE meeting on top of that and an annual review where you're planning for next year when you don't even know what you're doing tomorrow, I think is difficult. And so I would agree that, you know, as a parent, you have a right to postpone your meeting till a time that's, you know, convenient and all of that kind of stuff. So I think if you're having a difficult time and you're not ready to plan, then you need to talk to your CSE person, your PPS director, or whomever, and just say, I need to wait on this. And, you know, they may ask you to sign papers and all the, you know, official stuff, but I think it adds a level of stress that some people really just don't need right now. So that would be my opinion.
Lisa, as a parent?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, I was thinking, you know, in the everyday scheme, you know, we have our stresses, we have, you know, all our worries and about the kids. And now, you know, you're adding all this anxiety and fear on top of everything. And it's so hard to operate with a clear mind in all this. I know for like days I was like obsessed about hand sanitizer. It was like all I could think about, and it was like, oh my God, Lisa, get a grip, you know. And so I totally think they should be postponed without a doubt. You know, you want to, if you feel like you cannot do this now, if you don't feel comfortable in it, you know, with the technology, then yeah, it's postpone. This, you know, this is part of building that bus, you know, if need be. So, you know, yeah.
Thanks. Well, look, you know what our intent was. Our intent was to talk about managing behavior in a mindful way. And I think that, you know, Lisa, with your voice and Peggy, with your voice, you've done a great job of weaving it together and providing practical, examples. Again, this is not prime time for us. I mean, we're building it as we're moving forward. The thing that we are going to be doing is we're going to be sending out resources. So based upon Jeffrey's thought about 8 weeks, we're working with Alyssa William at the Hudson Valley Healing Center to create little 1.5, 2-minute little mindful video clips. And we intend to be able to send those out on a regular basis and then put them up on some type of format that people can have access to them. Because the idea is to be present, to be virtually present and to virtually provide support. Peg and Lisa, is it possible that, are there any other questions at this point? Great. Peg and Lisa, is it possible that you could give your contact information?
Sure. My email is, my last name is Pisano, P-I-S-A-N-O-P, at live.com. And so I would ask Deirdre, Tracy, Joan, Serba, hi Joan, people out there that I know, if you want to email me and tell me what your parents are experiencing, and maybe we can, because Lisa and I have kind of fleshed out some future broadcasts, if you will, but if you guys have suggestions for us, then we can try to integrate some of the people that we have out in this project and bring them together for whatever the needs are of the parents. So Karen, if you can do that too, and you can just email me.
Perfect, thanks. Lisa?
My email, I can be reached at lisanathan59@gmail.com. And I would like to say to piggyback a little bit on what Deirdre said about, you don't have to sit in the lotus position for a half an hour in order to meditate. Meditation or mindfulness, and we'll talk about that at a later date, the similarities and differences, can only be a moment. And every breath is a new time to start. You don't have to worry about what happened 2 minutes ago. This breath you're taking right now is a new breath, and you go from there. And to be kind to yourself and compassionate to yourself, you're only human, give yourself a break. And the other thing I'd like to say is when I started meditating, I heard about all these positive things that will come from it. And I said, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what they meant. But I just kept showing up. And I talk about this ad infinitum, ad nauseum, it's just showing up. And if you just take a few moments to take those calming breaths, you'll start to really, really see those benefits. And I have to say, I'm a true believer. So, and I'd be happy to share any resources I have if you have any questions.
Thanks so much, Lisa. Thanks so much, Peg. My contact email is force, F-O-R-C-E, @msmc.edu. And anything that we can do for you, your parents, or people in your network, we have a proactive caring team. As we start to get back into business, regular business, and going back to schools and stuff like that, one of our team members, Sharon Mary Cohen, is working with developing internship relationships. So anything that we can do to help you, based upon the material that we have and the belief system that we have, please know that we're available. So Peggy and Lisa, thank you so much.
I think, Karen, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to know, like, if you guys said earlier, you're going to do this every week, at the same time?
Every Wednesday at 10 a.m.
Unless you think it's a different
kind of flyer, kind of flyer that I can kind of get out. It doesn't have to have the titles and stuff, but just to say every Wednesday for the next 8 weeks, this is going to be available.
We can do that. And the fact is that Lisa and Peggy have crafted 5 topics. And what we'll do is, if we could get them into a flyer format, I'll just circulate that later on today when I circulate this video. But that's a great idea. And anything you can do to help present it, distribute it, not only the live broadcast, but also the fact that there will be an attached recording that you can submit, you can send around as well. All right, so everyone be safe. This was wonderful. And Lisa and Peggy, again, hats off. Great job.
Larry,
bye, everyone.
Before you hang up, I just want to mention for those people who are here in Dutchess County that
This is Elaine Sproat that's speaking now.
Yeah, our county supervisor has been having town halls, and there's one tomorrow night at 5:30, and he is going to be focusing on special needs families.
Wonderful.
So that you'll have a number of resources for our local community discussed then. And of course, there's similar things that are happening throughout the state.
Wonderful. Thank you, Elaine. All right, everyone have a wonderful day and be safe. All right, bye now.
Bye.
Bye, thank you. That's great.
Oh, you're welcome.